The night was heavy with rain, as Alina pressed her forehead against the cold window, whispering, "Why does love always find me when I am broken?" Her voice trembled as the storm outside echoed her pain. She felt the weight of every betrayal lingering in her chest, yet she forced herself to stand tall. When she stepped outside, she didn't see the stranger until her arms instinctively wrapped around him in a desperate embrace. Xavier froze, caught off guard by her trembling body pressed against his. Alina said, "I'm sorry, I thought you were someone else," pulling back with flushed cheeks, her eyes wide with humiliation. Xavier's gaze softened, though his voice carried a quiet intensity. "You're not mistaken. Sometimes the right person comes by accident." Alina's breath hitched, the storm water running down her face mingling with her tears. Behind them, the street lamps flickered, shadows stretching across the wet pavement like ghosts of her past. The sound of a car horn jolted her, but Xavier steadied her shoulders, grounding her. Alina whispered, "You don't even know me." Xavier replied, "Maybe I don't need to know you to see you." The storm roared louder, as if daring her to believe him. The storm refused to let up as Alina hurried inside the cafe, her wet coat leaving puddles on the floor. She muttered, "I just need a minute to breathe," ignoring the stares of strangers. Xavier followed, shaking the water from his hair, his presence commanding even in silence. Alina sat in the corner, curling her arms around herself, whispering, "He shouldn't matter. He's nobody." But the warmth in Xavier's gaze unsettled her more than the rain ever could. He finally spoke, "I didn't mean to intrude. You looked like you needed someone." Alina's jaw tightened as she shot back, "What I need is distance." Their eyes locked, her defiance colliding with his quiet persistence, as the hum of the cafe filled the space between them. Steam rose from Alina's untouched coffee as she traced circles on the cup. Her friend Naomi entered, her honey-brown skin glowing under the cafe lights, her afro crown bold and unshaken by the storm. Naomi said, "Girl, you look like you hugged a ghost." Alina rolled her eyes but laughed weakly. "Worse. I hugged a stranger." Naomi leaned closer, lowering her voice. "Not just any stranger. That man is looking at you like he's known your soul for years." Alina whispered, "And that terrifies me." Naomi's voice softened. "Maybe it should." Later that night, Alina walked the slick streets alone, her heels clicking against the pavement. She muttered to herself, "I won't let him be another scar." The city pulsed with neon, every light reflecting temptation and danger. Behind her, Xavier's voice carried through the storm. "Running only makes it harder." She froze, her breath clouding in the cold air, the pull between them undeniable yet terrifying. Alina finally turned, her voice sharp, "You don't know what I've been through." Xavier's jaw tightened as he replied, "Maybe not, but I see the fight in your eyes." Her chest rose with uneven breaths, her past screaming to keep him out. Yet his presence felt like gravity, pulling her closer no matter how she resisted. Morning light broke through Alina's blinds, but the heaviness in her chest refused to fade. She sat at her vanity, staring at her reflection as if searching for a stranger. Naomi knocked on the door before entering with 2 coffees in hand. Naomi said, "You didn't sleep, did you?" Alina forced a bitter laugh, replying, "Sleep doesn't come easy when your life feels like a storm." Naomi placed a hand on her shoulder and whispered, "That man, Xavier, why does he unsettle you so?" Alina shook her head, her voice low, "Because he saw me when I was weakest, and I don't know if I can survive being seen again." Naomi's eyes softened, but her words cut deep. Maybe surviving isn't the same as living. At her office, Alina drowned herself in spreadsheets, pretending numbers could shield her from emotions. Her boss walked by, but she barely noticed, her mind replaying Xavier's voice. Suddenly the receptionist whispered, "Someone's here for you." Alina turned to see Xavier standing near the glass doors, raincoat draped over his arm. Her breath caught as whispers spread across the office. She whispered to herself, "Not here, not now." Xavier's gaze locked onto hers, steady and unshaken. He stepped closer and murmured, "You can ignore me, but I won't ignore you." Alina stormed out of the building, heels striking hard against marble floors, her voice sharp. "Do you know what kind of mess you just caused?" Xavier followed, calm but unyielding. "Let them stare," he said, his voice deep and steady. Alina spun, eyes blazing. "This is my world, not yours. You don't get to walk in and tear it apart." Xavier stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Maybe your world needs tearing apart." For a moment, silence hung heavy, the truth in his words cutting deeper than his presence. That night, Alina sat on her apartment balcony, the city glowing beneath her. Naomi joined her with a blanket and a sigh. "You're fighting him like he's the enemy," Naomi said softly. Alina whispered, "Maybe he is." Naomi raised a brow. "Or maybe he's the mirror you've avoided too long." Alina's eyes welled as she muttered, "I don't want to need anyone." Naomi replied, her voice strong, "Needing someone doesn't make you weak, it makes you human." Later that evening, Alina's phone buzzed with an unknown number. Against her better judgment, she answered. Xavier's voice filled the silence, low and steady. "You don't have to be afraid of me." Her grip tightened on the phone as she whispered, "Fear isn't the problem. Trust is." Xavier exhaled audibly, his tone raw. "Then let me earn it." Alina closed her eyes, her heart racing, knowing she was standing at the edge of something she couldn't escape. The evening fundraiser glittered with chandeliers and murmured conversations, but Alina felt suffocated beneath the weight of wealthy strangers. Naomi whispered, "Breathe, you belong here as much as they do." Alina forced a smile, but her eyes betrayed her nerves. Then Xavier entered, his tailored suit commanding attention, every gaze shifting toward him. He moved through the room with ease, but his focus was only on her. Alina muttered, "Of all the places," her chest tightened as he approached, his voice low but steady. "You look like you'd rather be anywhere else." She shot back, "Because I would." Yet the way his eyes softened made her pulse betray her words. Alina slipped onto the balcony, gulping fresh air like water after drowning. Xavier followed, footsteps deliberate. "Running again?" he asked, his tone softer than before. She turned sharply, her voice trembling with anger. "Stop following me like I'm yours to claim." His jaw tightened, but he didn't retreat. "I'm not here to claim you, Alina. I'm here because I can't ignore you." Her eyes shimmered with defiance as she whispered, "And what if I want to be ignored?" He stepped closer, rain mist brushing his shoulders as he murmured, "Then I'll stand here until you believe me." Back inside, Naomi intercepted Xavier with sharp eyes. "What do you want with her?" she demanded, voice laced with suspicion. Xavier's lips curved into a restrained smile. "Only what she's willing to give." Naomi scoffed. "Men like you never ask, you just take." Across the room, Alina overheard, her heart racing at Naomi's words. She whispered to herself, "What if she's right?" Yet when Xavier's gaze found hers again, the truth became tangled with desire. Later, Alina found herself alone in the gallery hall, staring at a portrait of a woman whose painted eyes seemed to judge her. Xavier's voice echoed behind her, "You're not as alone as you think." She turned, frustration laced with fear. "You don't know me," she snapped. He stepped closer, gaze piercing. "I know pain when I see it." Her throat tightened, and for a heartbeat, she allowed herself to believe he saw past her defenses. But the thought terrified her more than his persistence. When the night ended, Alina walked toward her car, exhaustion dragging at her every step. Naomi called after her, "Don't let him get in your head." Alina whispered back, "Too late." From the shadows, Xavier's voice cut through, "I'll wait as long as it takes." Her eyes stung with tears as she turned the ignition, the sound of the engine drowning out everything except the war inside her chest. She drove off, but her heart refused to leave him behind. Alina sat at her desk late into the night, papers scattered around her like fallen leaves. She rubbed her temples, muttering, "Why can't I shake him?" The office was nearly empty when the door opened. She froze at the sight of Xavier walking in with a folder in hand. He placed it on her desk, his expression unreadable. You deserve to know the truth, he said firmly. She hesitated before opening it, her breath catching as she read the documents. Her voice cracked. This can't be real. Xavier's voice softened. It is. And it ties us together in ways you never imagined. The documents revealed her late father's company, once thought stolen, was acquired by Xavier's family. Her hands shook as she whispered, "Your family destroyed mine." Xavier's jaw clenched. It wasn't that simple. Tears blurred her vision as she stood, rage fueling her. Not that simple. My father drank himself to death because of this. Xavier's voice broke. I didn't know then. But I know now, and I swear I'll make it right. Alina's scream echoed. You should have stayed a stranger. Naomi arrived minutes later, after Alina's frantic call. She listened, her eyes narrowing as Alina recounted the truth. So all this time the man you've been drawn to is the son of the man who destroyed your family? Naomi asked sharply. Alina nodded, her hands shaking. Naomi turned to Xavier, her voice like steel. You don't get to play savior when your family played the villain. Xavier's tone cut low. I am not my father. Alina whispered. But you carry his shadow. The silence that followed was heavier than any storm. Later that night, Alina wandered the empty streets, heels echoing against concrete. Her mind replayed the revelation, every step heavier. She muttered, I should hate him. Yet her chest ached with the contradiction of longing. From the shadows, Xavier appeared, his voice steady. I can't undo the past, but I can rewrite our future. Alina's eyes blazed. Your future was built on my family's grave. His silence said more than words ever could. Alina stood on the bridge overlooking the river, the water below rippling with moonlight. She whispered, Dad, what would you tell me now? Her tears slid silently as Xavier approached slowly. If I walk away now, you'll never trust me again, he said quietly. Alina turned, her face streaked with pain. And if you stay, I'll never forgive you. Their eyes locked, both caught in the unbearable truth that love had become a battlefield. The boardroom was suffocating under the weight of silence. The long mahogany table lined with executives whose eyes darted between Alina and the empty chair at its head. She stood with her hands gripping the back of the chair, her voice calm but laced with steel. This company was my father's dream, and I refused to let it die beneath the shadow of greed. Her words carried through the glass walls, echoing against the high ceilings. Then the doors burst open, and Xavier strode in, every step deliberate, his tailored suit a striking contrast against her raw determination. Gasps rippled through the room, a storm of whispers igniting in his wake. He ignored them all, his gaze fixed only on Alina. Then let me stand beside you, he said firmly. Alina's heart stuttered, but her jaw clenched as she hissed under her breath, You don't belong here. Xavier didn't flinch. He stepped closer, his presence undeniable. I belong anywhere you're carrying a battle too heavy to fight alone. Alina's eyes burned as emotions warred inside her, pride refusing to bend, yet longing threatening to betray her. The air grew tighter, every executive frozen, waiting for the collision of two worlds destined to burn. Alina stormed from the boardroom, her heels striking the marble floor like gunfire. The hallway's glass walls reflected her anger back at her, fragments of herself splintered in rage. Xavier's voice chased her, sharp and desperate. Stop running from me. His footsteps echoed close behind until she spun around, eyes blazing with fury and tears. You don't get to decide what I need, she snapped, her voice cracking as if her strength had split in two. He closed the distance between them, his voice dropping to something lower, rawer. I never wanted to be your enemy, Alina. But if the truth makes me one, then I'll fight for you anyway. She shook her head, every muscle in her body trembling with the weight of years of betrayal. You are everything I swore I'd never let in again, she whispered, her words laced with venom and sorrow. His reply was soft but devastating, his eyes drilling into hers with unrelenting intensity. Then why can't you walk away? Her chest heaved, silence stretching between them like a chasm too wide to close, yet somehow not wide enough to break the pull that bound them together. The storm outside rattled Alina's apartment windows, thunder crashing like the echoes of her heart. She sat curled on the couch, whispering to herself, "Why does he undo me so easily?" Her phone buzzed, but before she could answer, there was a knock. Against her better judgment, she opened the door. Xavier stood drenched in rain, his trench coat heavy and his hair slick against his forehead. His eyes were dark, but his voice was hoarse, stripped of all armor. "We need to end this war between us," he said. Alina's breath caught, her body stiffening as if every bone had been set against him. "There's no war," she replied sharply, her voice trembling. "Only damage you can't repair." His hand gripped the doorframe as if he needed its strength. "Then let me bleed with you," he whispered. The rawness in his tone knocked the wind from her chest, her knees threatening to buckle. For a moment, time stilled, the storm beyond becoming nothing compared to the storm inside. She wanted to slam the door, but her hand froze, trembling against the wood, unable to push him away or pull him closer. The confrontation erupted in the living room, the air thick with storm and sorrow. Alina shoved Xavier's chest, her voice breaking. "You ruined everything." He didn't move, his chest rising heavily, eyes glistening. "Then hate me, but don't shut me out," he pleaded, his voice cracking. Her tears came in torrents, years of grief tearing through her body. "I don't know how to love someone who carries the face of my loss," she whispered, every syllable heavy as stone. His hands trembled as they hovered inches from her arms, afraid to touch her but desperate to bridge the space. "Then let me teach you what love looks like beyond loss," he murmured, his voice as raw as her sobs. The storm outside howled louder, glass rattling in the window panes, as if the world mirrored their collision. She crumbled against her own fury, her fists shaking, her chest heaving as silence swallowed the room. It wasn't surrender, it was devastation. Two broken hearts refusing to collapse, yet too fragile to resist. Hours felt like minutes as they collapsed onto the couch, not in surrender, but in exhaustion. Alina's sobs softened into hiccups, her face buried in her hands. Xavier sat beside her, his shoulders hunched, the weight of his own guilt pressing him down. His voice was hoarse, broken. "I'll never forgive what was done, but I'll never stop trying to give you back what was stolen." Alina lifted her head slowly, her eyes swollen, her cheeks stained. "You're asking me to let go of a ghost," she whispered, her voice shredded. Xavier's reply was almost a breath. "I'm asking you to hold on to me instead." Her chest heaved, trembling as her gaze met his. For the first time, neither of them moved away. The storm outside quieted into a soft drizzle, but the storm inside them still burned, binding them in a silence that was louder than any scream. The climax was not in their shouts, but in the unbearable stillness that left them tethered by scars and fragile hope. Morning light spilled softly through Alina's curtains, but the heaviness in her chest made the day feel colder than night. She sat at the edge of her bed, her hands clasped together so tightly her knuckles whitened. Naomi appeared in the doorway, holding 2 mugs of coffee, her voice steady but gentle. "You look like you've been through a war," she said. Alina forced a hollow laugh that cracked halfway through. "Maybe I have," she whispered, staring at her reflection in the vanity. Naomi set the mugs down and sat beside her, the silence between them weighty, filled with unsaid truths. Finally, Naomi broke it, her tone sharp but kind. "The real question isn't if you love him. It's if you can survive loving him." Alina turned her face away, but her eyes shimmered with tears. "Survival is all I've ever known," she muttered, her throat tight. "Maybe I want more than just surviving." Naomi's hand touched hers, firm and grounding. "Then maybe the fight is worth it. Not for him. For you." The cemetery smelled of damp earth and regret. Alina knelt before her father's grave, her fingers brushing the cold stone. "I don't know how to forgive him, Dad," she whispered, her voice breaking in the open air. The crunch of footsteps made her freeze. She turned to see Xavier, dressed in a dark overcoat, his face solemn. He held nothing in his hands, no flowers, no gestures, only sincerity. I came to pay respect, not excuses, he said quietly, his voice almost swallowed by the wind. Alina rose to her feet, fury simmering behind her eyes. Respect doesn't erase the past, she hissed. Xavier nodded slowly, his jaw tight, his eyes rimmed with guilt. No, but maybe it can honor it. Her heart twisted, torn between rage and longing, the weight of loss pulling her down even as his presence threatened to lift her. She shook her head, tears spilling freely. You shouldn't be here, she muttered, but her voice lacked conviction. He took one step closer, not daring to bridge the space fully. Then why does it feel like I am exactly where I should be? That evening, Naomi's kitchen glowed with candlelight, warm and safe in a way Alina hadn't felt in years. She sat at the wooden table, hands wrapped around a steaming mug, her shoulders hunched with exhaustion. Naomi placed a fresh teapot down, her eyes locked on her friend. You're punishing yourself as much as him, Naomi said firmly. Alina shook her head, voice low. You don't understand. Loving him feels like betraying my father. Naomi's face softened, her voice steady. Or maybe it's how you finally heal. Alina's breath hitched, her grip tightening on the mug until her knuckles ached. And if it destroys me? She asked, her voice breaking into a whisper. Naomi leaned forward, her tone both fierce and tender. Then at least you weren't afraid to live. The words pierced Alina like a blade, sharp but freeing. Tears burned her eyes, and she whispered, I'm so tired of carrying all of this alone. Naomi reached across the table, their hands meeting in the candlelight, a fragile promise of strength. The city was alive with neon, its lights shimmering across puddles from a passing rain. Alina walked alone, her beige coat trailing behind her, her breath clouding in the cold night. Can I forgive without forgetting? She whispered to herself, the words lost in the hum of cars. Then, like fate, Xavier appeared under a glowing streetlight, waiting as if he knew she'd be there. Her steps faltered, her heart thudding painfully in her chest. Their eyes locked, and neither moved, the silence louder than traffic. Finally, Xavier spoke, his voice quiet but unwavering. I don't want redemption. I just want you. Alina froze, shaking her head. I don't know how to let go of the pain, she murmured, her throat thick with unshed tears. He stepped closer, the neon light painting his face with colors. Then let me carry it with you, he whispered, his voice breaking. She stood trembling, the city pulsing around them, as if the entire world held its breath waiting for her answer. By midnight, Alina returned to the bridge where her world had shattered weeks ago. She leaned against the railing, the moonlight spilling across the river below, shimmering like fractured glass. Her voice cracked as she whispered, Dad, I just want peace. The crunch of footsteps made her glance back. Xavier appeared, his overcoat brushing in the wind, his eyes filled with quiet determination. He stopped a few feet away, giving her space, yet his presence pressed against her ribs. If I walk away now, you'll never trust me again, he said softly. Alina turned, her face streaked with tears, but her voice steady. And if you stay, I'll never forgive you. Their words hung in the cold night air, both truths sharp enough to wound. For a long moment, neither spoke, their gazes locked, both hearts trembling under the unbearable weight of choice. Finally, Alina exhaled, her chest collapsing under the relief of saying the unsayable. For the first time, forgiveness didn't feel impossible, only fragile, like glass under pressure. The city's hum felt distant as Alina stood outside her building, the night air heavy with silence. She wrapped her coat around her, whispering, This is the edge of everything. Xavier's voice broke the stillness from behind her. Edges are where you learn to fly. She turned, her eyes exhausted, her lips trembling. Or where you fall, she countered, her tone soft but sharp. He stepped closer, careful not to touch her, his presence like a storm waiting to break. Then, let me fall with you, he said, his voice carrying both fear and devotion. Her breath shook, her chest rising unevenly as she stared at him, every piece of her torn between retreat and surrender. For a moment, the world blurred, the city lights fading, until there was nothing but them suspended on the edge of a decision too heavy to bear. Inside her apartment, Alina tossed her keys on the table and collapsed into the couch. Her whisper filled the silence. "I can't keep living in pieces." Xavier remained standing, fists clenched at his sides, his chest heaving. "Then, let me be the one who puts you back together," he said, his voice rough with desperation. She looked up, tears shimmering in her eyes. "Do you even understand what it means to carry someone's ruin?" Her words sliced through the air. Xavier's gaze didn't waver. "I carry mine every day," he admitted quietly. "Maybe together, our ruins can finally make something whole." Alina's heart twisted painfully, her chest rising and falling as she wrestled with the truth of his words. For the first time, her silence wasn't rejection but fragile acceptance. Naomi arrived without warning, her eyes scanning the room, taking in the storm of silence between them. She folded her arms, her tone sharp. "So this is what it comes down to." Alina's lips trembled. "It's not that simple," she whispered, her voice fraying. Naomi's gaze hardened, though sorrow flickered in her eyes. "Scars don't vanish just because you love the one who caused them," she said. Xavier lowered his head, his voice hoarse. "I never asked for forgiveness. Only the chance to prove love is stronger." Naomi turned to Alina, her voice softening, her expression full of care. "Then the choice is yours, not his." Alina's chest tightened, her breath trembling as the silence wrapped around them, a silence thick with decision and fear. Alina stepped onto the balcony, the night air sharp against her cheeks. She gripped the railing, staring at the endless city lights. "Love isn't supposed to hurt like this," she whispered. Xavier followed slowly, his breath misting in the cold. "No," he said softly. "But sometimes the pain is proof it's real." She closed her eyes, her chest heavy with fear. "If I let you in, I may never be the same again," she said, her words trembling. He stepped closer, his voice cracking. "Neither will I. That's what makes it worth it." The silence stretched, filled with the hum of the city and the roar of their unspoken truths. Two souls stood at the edge of everything, bound by scars and fragile hope. Alina finally turned, her face streaked with tears, but her gaze blazing with decision. "You'll never erase the pain," she said, her voice steady. Xavier's voice broke as he replied. "I don't want to erase it, I want to carry it with you." A tear slipped down her cheek, her lips trembling. "Then don't let go," she whispered. Xavier reached out, his hand finding hers, their fingers intertwining under the pale glow of the city. For the first time, the silence wasn't unbearable, it was salvation. The final blow wasn't spoken but lived. The haunting truth that love wasn't perfection, but the courage to survive storms together.